So we have with us Dr. Chaturvedi. Welcome to BW Business World. So my first question to you is how Gen AI is shaping India's technological landscape and digital economy, and how we can leverage Gen AI to solve societal challenges and to drive inclusive growth.
Thank you. Thank you, Abhishek, for that question. First, congratulations to Dr. Anurag Batra and the entire BW team for putting together a fantastic national conference on generative AI and the potential that it holds for India. I represent a company called InMobi. The InMobi group also has Glance. They're both AI-led disruptors in the world of ad tech, as well as how consumer technology is evolving. The World Economic Forum, not just me, not my personal opinion, but the world at large believes that artificial intelligence, particularly generative AI, has been one of the biggest disruptors in the landscape of technology. India is not untouched when it comes to technology. Our Prime Minister since 2014 and the entire Digital India program, along with the JAM Trinity, which includes Jandhan, Aadhaar, and mobile, has made technology integral to every aspect of how we live, work, play as citizens of this country. I think it's one of the most ambitious programs where generative AI can truly play a leading role. The address that I gave today looked at various aspects of how artificial intelligence can be instrumental in bridging income inequalities. It's going to have a monumental impact because the entire global economy is going to be upwards of $1,118 trillion, billion dollars when it comes to the economic impact. The combined GDP of India and China is going to be outrun by the impact that AI will have, particularly in countries and states which are primarily agrarian, which are embracing technology well, which have very large data sets such as India. It's going to have a transformative impact. So when I'm looking at spaces like consumer tech, like agri-tech, health tech, edu-tech, especially enhancing teacher-student ratios, especially looking at schools which may be far away, or looking at specializations in sports medicines, looking at the performance of our athletes, the more compute power that we continue to generate, the more upskilling that we continue to do, and the more bridging that we continue to provide to our engineering graduates, that's the kind of transformation that we can have, adding over $500 billion to India's economy using AI. So I'm very excited about the future. I think it's a very timely conversation that BW is doing today.
Okay, so my next question is to talking about India's context. Do you think that India's business ecosystem is using Gen AI to its full potential? If not, how they can utilize it better?
Thank you, Abhishek. Again, fantastic question. When we looked at the data sets today, it's an IBM study. India's at about 57%, one of the highest percentages when it comes to business adoption, when it comes to trust India's leading global countries and how much trust we have in technology. Having said that, there's a lot of readiness. But what we are required to do is look at our inputs where labor is an asset when it comes to India, when it comes to the price of labor market, when it comes to the adoption of technology. We have to look at a very Indianized way of using technology. So there's a mindset readiness, but there's a little bit of hesitation. There's a little bit of skepticism as well. Is it going to work? Will it be over-reliance on technology? What happens when systems fail? So when we're looking at a more trusted model, and that's what I said today as well, that sunlight is the best disinfectant. So the more transparency that we bring in our models, in our algorithms, that would be the India way of building data which is more localized, data which has more local context, data which looks at local problems with global solutions. So those are the kind of issues that when we start addressing that holistically, for example, small businesses, medium scale enterprises that you're so passionately writing about, they can do with a lot of credibility, they can do with a lot of automation. So if you look at a small manufacturing plant, it has a lot of downtime. How do I predict when my machines can go off the line? When would be a good time to, let's say, obfuscate a part, replace a new machine? Those are the kind of analytics, soil prediction, irrigation. How do I look at water as a commodity, which is becoming a very, very scarce resource? So the more open minds that CEOs keep, UAE, for example, is training every single bureaucrat at every level on AI. And those are the kind of adoptions that India is doing very, very rapidly. So last week itself, I was invited both by the cabinet in Uttar Pradesh, where I addressed the ministers as well as 270 MLCs. And at the invitation of the Chief Secretary of Uttar Pradesh, I also addressed very senior level bureaucrats across agriculture, across planning. So I'm very excited that there's a lot of reception, there's a lot of openness, and there's grounded approaches to what AI can do for India. So not only are we ready, we are actively embracing it. Models like Bhashini, which are being championed by the Ministry of IT and Technology, which have looked at local language content, which are able to provide solutions in local languages, combined with the power of smartphones, combined with the power of low cost of data, combined with the power of BharatNet and the optic fiber cable network that connects, 600,000 villages in India, 250,000 village panchayat. I think the sky is the limit.
So, do you think that Gen AI poses any threat to data and privacy, data security and privacy, and how can industry stakeholders and government can build a better future in this rapidly changing landscape?
Abhishek, so when it comes to generative AI, every company, and there are gradations of data, right? There's personal data, there's private data, there's critical data, there's data which is okay to be in the public domain and we don't really care about it. There's data at rest. There are certain principles when it comes to who collects the data, for how long is the data stored, who has access to data, what is the kind of use that you're putting data to, is there informed consent from the users. When it comes to models, corporations will have to be very careful as to what they're doing with large models. So there are now models which are available for business as business solutions, which have the requisite amount of checks and balances and indemnity. Now, if I'm at the verge of a competitive contract and I end up putting that in, then I'm doing that at my risk. So we have to realize that there are certain confidential activities which have very high thresholds of sensitivities. You cannot use a public model and say, give me an output and data is not going to be trained. The basic premise of any large language model is it learns and trains from the input that it is being given. So obviously it's going to store that content, which is why the need to understand that, one, we need to look at global models. We also need to look at local language models. We need to look at not just large, but also small language models, which are able to create localized context. And that sensitivity, that filter, that check and balance, we'll have to put in every single aspect. So Government of India is very actively now looked at DPDP. It is also looking at the Digital India bill that is up for consultation. It is also looking at putting in checks and balances, not only for larger conversations around privacy, but also the malicious actors. So deepfake is a real challenge. The use of deepfake and videos during election, again, a very, very big challenge. So along with adoption, the important point to realize is who is going to get left behind. So investing enough in digital capacity building, ensuring that your grandmother and your mother and your grandfather are equally going to be part of this technology. That's when India will truly benefit and we'll be able to harness the technology. So the intention has to be, do not become a slave to technology. Make it your companion, make it work for you. Use it for activities which are labor intensive and use it as a tool to enhance your productivity. It cannot be a replacement for the human mind.
Yes. Thank you so much for your time. Lovely speaking to you. Thanks.